Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, depending on where you're connecting from. Welcome to yet another webinar in the Citrix Ready technical webinar series, where we showcase how Citrix and our partners have integrated to deliver valuable products and solutions to common problems faced by our customers. I'm Anil Kumar, your host for today. Unlike our previous webinars where our partners provide a deep dive into their product integration with Citrix, today it's a little bit different. We'll be talking with AppSense, and we are also joined by a Citrix Architect. This will be more like an interview where we'll be talking to our guests to find out what really goes on, trying to make the clinicians as productive as possible. But before we deep dive, let me introduce a little bit about Citrix Ready. Citrix Ready is an end-to-end technology partner program where we show compatibility with. Once validated, all these products are published in Citrix Ready Marketplace, where customers can quickly and easily find solutions which is recommended by Citrix. You can visit our Citrix Ready Marketplace at citrix.com/ready. If you'd like to know more about our program, please visit the website below. So we are joined by Jason Willis. He's a Citrix architect. Let's get a brief intro from Jason. Hi, Jason.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Jason Willis, Citrix architect at McKesson. One of the key responsibilities there was to manage all things Citrix, AppSense, and the NetScaler. Previously, I'd spent about two and a half years at Baylor Scott & White, where we did a 10,000 user rollout of Epic on Citrix, and AppSense is being one of the primary drivers for the performance and for the experience that we were afforded to give to our customers.
Perfect.
And thanks very much, Jason. Thanks. We also have Simon here with us from Ivanti. Hi, Simon. Welcome back once again to one of our webinars. Could you provide us a brief introduction about yourself?
Of course, no problem at all. I am the Chief Technologist for the AppSense portfolio of technologies. I'm going to cover this off in a little bit more detail, but as hopefully many of your listeners know, AppSense has been through a bit of a acquisition and a rebranding of recent times, and hence our new name now, Ivanti. But I've been working with the AppSense set of products for about 14 years. I've been in the Citrix server-based computing space for well over 15 years, and been working with both those organizations at scale for some time. So yeah, pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Simon. So Simon, welcome to the webinar, and it's all yours.
Excellent. Thank you, Anil. I was aware just then that we may have been experiencing some audio issues. Anil, can you still hear me okay?
Yes, I'm able to hear you okay.
Perfect. All right, no problem at all. So just to bring everybody up to speed, Ivanti, pronounced double E instead of the I, Ivanti, is the new name for all products that sit under what was the Landesk organization, and that includes obviously the AppSense brand. AppSense as an organization, we were actually born in 1999 We were spun out of a platinum Citrix partner back at the time, who was deploying some server-based computing into a financial institution, and found that a number of users were doing certain things on that Citrix environment that perhaps the Citrix administrators and the IT administrators didn't want them to do. They were running various tools and games and utilities, for instance, on the Citrix desktop, and that was ultimately consuming both CPU and memory and having a performance impact on the overall Citrix environment. So we created some tools, I think would be fair to say at that point, back in 1999, which helped deal with that. It helped secure, for instance, a Citrix desktop, and it also helped control the CPU and the memory usage of a Citrix desktop. And that's really where AppSense was born out of. It was sort of born out of a need in the server-based computing space. Since 1999, AppSense then grew to about 500 employees in size. It was turning over in excess of about $100 million, and it was being used not just on server-based computing environments, but also on virtualized desktops, and more so in the last 4 to 5 years across the entire Windows-based desktop estate. And it was really there to help organizations manage users independently of how they were deploying their applications and their desktops. So a way of ensuring a consistent user experience, delivering a great user experience so that users could be productive, but also simultaneously trying to help IT manage users via a single pane of glass, and also securing them and configuring their environment for them. In March, April of 2016, AppSense as an organization was acquired by Landesk, and so it was known as AppSense, part of the Landesk family. And then in January, just last month of this year, Landesk merged with Heat Software, and under that merger came a complete rebrand, and now all products and the business is known as Ivanti. So moving forward, you will, the AppSense brand will eventually die off, and we will be leading and going to market with our Ivanti branding. That's not to say that the products are changing. As we'll go through now, we'll start to look at products like Application Manager, Performance Manager, Environment Manager, and something called the Desktop Now Suite. Those products still remain. They're just rebranded as Ivanti products. We've been a partner with a Citrix Ready partner since 1999. As I say, I've been working with Citrix for that time and some, to be fair. And really, when it comes to Citrix, we help all organizations of any size, whether you've got one terminal server or you've got 10 desktops, all the way up to 140, 150, even 200,000 desktops in some cases. We help accelerate and increase the adoption of Citrix. We help organizations do more with their Citrix environment and reap some of those benefits that Citrix XenApp and XenDesktop brings to an environment. In the same way that we were doing back in 1999, we continue to secure, optimize and manage users across that complete estate. So whether a user, and this is quite common now, a user may be logging on to a FAT client or a laptop or a PC, for instance. They then may be consuming a XenDesktop, virtualized desktop from Citrix. They may well then be consuming applications within that virtualized desktop from XenApp. It doesn't matter from an AppSense point of view where that user's logging on to, how many applications and how many desktops they're using. We're all about ensuring that we can manage that user from a single pane of glass across all three of those environments, ensuring that yes, they're secure, yes, that it's configured and it's optimized so they can get on and do their job, but also that they get the best possible experience whilst using that environment and accessing their applications and data. So with that, I will just cover off, in terms of an agenda, we're going to leave some time for Q&A at the end, but we're also, we just had a discussion before this started. We're more than happy to take questions throughout, so we'll try and deal with those as they come in. We're going to get a little bit of background on Jason, try and find out who Jason is. Jason's got a wealth of knowledge, and at the end of the day is one of those guys that is out there deploying Citrix and AppSense technologies into a whole host of different environments. So we're going to try and understand from him what his background is and what he's been up to. We're then going to drill down into healthcare and try and look at what's going on
Simon,
with.
sorry to cut you short there, but
That's fine.
we are still seeing the first slide on the screen.
Ah, um, not doing too well here, are we? How's that?
Uh, right now I'm able to see the correct slide. Thanks.
No problem at all. Um, yeah, bear with me. That's not okay. That should help. That should help things. So we'll speak to Jason. Then we want to talk specifically around healthcare and some of the challenges that people are facing in healthcare. We're going to dive then into how Citrix and AppSense can help healthcare. And then lastly, we'll start to look at various different types of applications and what we mean by user experience, and also perhaps touch on security towards the end as well. But I think it's fair to say that a lot of what we're going to talk about today, based on Jason's experience, is around healthcare. But one of the questions and one of the things that I'd like Jason to try and perhaps talk about throughout is also how this can apply to other types of environments and other verticals and industries that he's worked with over the years as well. So without further ado, Jason, who are you? Where have you worked? Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself in a little bit more detail?
Well, thank you, Simon. I appreciate that. So, yes, so my name is Jason Wills. I've been working with Citrix for a little over 12 years now. I've worked in the healthcare industry. I worked in the school industry prior. So some of my first roles were working for a school district where we implemented Citrix from K through 8 users. I did that for about almost 10 years. And then after that, uh, family and things relocated down to the Texas area. So me and my wife, we decided to come on down here to Texas, and went and came in, took a role at Scott and White before they had completed the merger with Baylor to become what they are now as Baylor Scott and White. But came in there to go ahead and they were converting from multiple applications over to Epic. So one of the first things we did was go ahead and set up and build the Epic implementation for them, and that's where I first discovered AppSense. So that was kind of a groundbreaking moment for me. I always tell folks, and I said, I did Citrix for 10 years, and I don't know what I was doing with Citrix for 10 years after I met AppSense. So it was a very eye-opening experience, to say the least, when I first started working with AppSense. And then recently I was at McKesson. So McKesson Specialty Health, or U.S. Oncology, headquartered out of here in the Woodlands, Texas. And for there, we did primary responsibility was we were running about 15,000 sessions a day, all of that being integrated with AppSense. So primarily just doing Citrix maintenance. We had new user rollouts, new companies coming on board, new CSAs. The cool thing about McKesson is if you like being busy, there's always something to do because there's always another project, always something coming down the tube. So that was it's been instrumental in learning the new technologies and trying to do things better, more optimized, and while reducing your data center footprint, reducing downtime. So that was one of the biggest things is at McKesson was to ensure that, hey, we're always up and we're always working. So that was some of the biggest things that I've accomplished here in the last few years is working with them. And I told you I've been working with Citrix now for quite a while, and working with AppSense in the last 5 years just has really made my job so much easier in terms of profile management and being able to optimize and make changes on the fly. It's just been, and security has been a huge thing. So it's been instrumental in being able to deliver and curtail the environment that we need to do in order to make our customers happy, right? Our users.
Sure, sure,
So
sure.
So some of the skill sets here. I've been a Citrix certified expert in virtualization. Do have my certificate in networking for the NetScaler. Um, did the MCSE. So I've taken AppSense training as well. So I mean I've run through the gambit of application or certifications and tests and so forth. So that has helped me out significantly in my career. I must say that getting those certs and learning more and really deep diving into the applications and management of them has really helped and the success not only in my career but for the places that I've worked for. So
Yeah. Yeah. And where are you now then? So since we've sort of arranged this webinar, you've moved on from McKesson now, correct?
yes, so recently, just a couple of weeks ago, ended up moving on from McKesson and working with a brand new consulting company, Alchemy Technology Group. Um, it's been one of the best things, best decisions I've ever made. Just a great company. The leadership there is fantastic. We're all going in a direction to take what has been somewhat ordinary and turn it into an extraordinary system. You know, we've been very focused on, or they've been very focused on hiring some of the best talent out there to make sure that the implementations, to make sure that the environments, to make sure that the customers and people we work with, they have the best systems that they can have.
And they're taking, and so that again is taking, that consultative business is going out, but not just to healthcare, right? That's now going out across all types of verticals with the Citrix, AppSense, and other technologies.
Yeah, I mean we're primarily based out of Houston, so we do a lot of gas and oil. We've got financial, we've got healthcare. I mean we're running the whole gamut. SMB, so it's not just focused on one vertical, but it's people who need help to get things going again, or to get something upgraded, or to do what they need to do to optimize their environment.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. All right. No, that's good. That's good, good, good. So, um, from a healthcare point of view, you were Baylor Scott, then at McKesson. I mean, you mentioned then McKesson was going through mergers and acquisitions. It was, there was never a not a busy day, right? There was always something to do. Were those two organizations very different? From a business point of view, were they trying to achieve different things?
No, I don't think that they were trying to achieve different things. Working at the hospital, when we worked at Scott and White, one of the things before we had started working with AppSense, one of the biggest things that we deal with on a day-to-day basis was profile management. Prior to getting AppSense at the hospital, I mean, we get 7, 8, 10 tickets a day. Oh, hey, this profile needs to be deleted. This needs to be deleted. This is corrupt. That's not working. And a majority of the time in tickets was just spent just trying to keep the environment cleaned up, tidy, so that users could continue to use their applications. So that was a lot of what we were, dealing with in a day. Performance issues, not being able to achieve, good user densities on our XenApp boxes. I mean, those were some of the initial challenges that we faced, and that was one of the primary reasons that we brought in AppSense to come in here and really help out with that. McKesson was a little bit different. They were a national organization all across the United States. A lot of it had to deal with if we had an issue where something might be going on with the customer side, or that type of issue, performance type of things, from being from one side of the states to the other side. But theirs was more, and they were constantly growing. McKesson was always, acquiring, or new CSAs were coming online. So a new group of doctors and their clinicians and their nurses and everybody would be coming online, and making sure that capacity is there, making sure that we have the licensing there, then making sure that all the pieces that we need to continue to expand and deliver the applications was, it's a lot.
Mm, yeah, yeah. You mentioned profile management then. Um, I mean, I think I say I think, but I think the majority of people on this call will know now that Windows profiles have been a challenge for some time, right? Profiles, Windows profiles typically are all-encompassing, monolithic blobs that grow over time. You know, some of them are 1 meg, some of them are 5 meg, some of them are 25 meg, some of them are even gigabytes in size. And if you're in a VDI or particularly a non-persistent type of environment, and you're having to pull those profiles down at logon, that delays logon times, and then we end up with profile corruption and profile bloat. And you mentioned sort of like the 7 or 8 tickets at least a day that are being raised. And I think hopefully most people will understand as well is that those profiles are typically not compatible across different versions of Windows either, right? So your desktop profile is not compatible with your Citrix Terminal Services profile, and the Windows XP version 1 profile is not compatible with the version 5 Windows 10 profile, as another example. But what is it specifically, do you think, in healthcare or any other vertical that you've seen that perhaps means that those profiles calls are happening on a more regular basis? Is there anything specifically?
Well, I think I think the toughest challenge was, is with a traditional roaming profile. I mean, it just captures everything. It's not there's no exclusion, or there's no focus on what do I need to run, or what do I need to capture. It's, hey, we just throw everything in a bucket, and then we pick it up and we chuck it around where we need it to go.
Mm,
And working at the hospital, one of the biggest things, one of the huge things for us is that when we had the AppSense gentleman come out and come and set us up, first thing we did is we went to mandatory profiles, and that just in itself was a big leap for us. Being able to now have a profile, less than 300K in size, and that's where we're loading, and then being able to inject. Um, the just the settings and the configurations that we need for those applications was a monumental piece. And it was also that in itself was part of the reason that we were able to get our login times with our applications down, sub 10 seconds. So that was a huge point for us. And after we implemented just the environment manager piece, I mean, we had gone down from 7 to 10 tickets a day down. Sometimes we would barely get one or two that were pertaining to some type of profile related issue. And that being said, and we were running multiple versions. We had XenApp 4.5, XenApp 6.5. So it was challenging to be able to do that previously, and with the addition of that, really improved our environment and the additional administrators who were administering it as well.
mm. And what would you say are the sort of like the top one, two, three priorities for um, healthcare at the moment? What pressures was the business placing on you in terms of IT? Obviously, by the sounds of it, log-on times was an important factor. I mean, I'm assuming that affects healthcare or patient care in one way or another in terms of how quickly doctors and nurses and clinicians can respond. Um, but I'm just interested to see, what was the business talking to the CIO about, and what did they ultimately want IT to deliver the business?
Well, our directive was Epic. When I was working at the hospital, Epic doesn't go down. If there's no um, unscheduled downtimes of Epic, our goal was to keep Epic up, to keep Epic running, and when the nurse or the clinician, when they go to double click on that icon, it better be there darn near instantly, because that could be, sometimes you have to kind of take yourself and look at it. That could be your mom, your dad, your brother, your aunt, your cousin, that's in there on the operating table, or coming into the ambulance, or needs to see a doctor. And if your applications are taking, you know, minutes to load, that could be the difference between life or death. And that was one of the most important things about the environment was, speed and keeping the resilience of the network. So, those were some of the most important and critical things in the environment.
Right, right. And Citrix helps with that as well, right?
And Citrix just enables us to be able to deploy the application from anytime, anywhere, any place. The ubiquitous access was one of the biggest drivers for the Citrix environment. I mean, we had doctors that were traveling to different hospitals, to different clinics, to different places, And when they showed up there and they double-clicked on their icon, they needed to have their user data. They needed to be able to access the application and information regardless of the device that they were using.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, we spoke about clinicians, for instance. User experience, user productivity. These are words that are commonly bounded about in today's world, right? I mean, our users have got far higher expectations than they've ever had before, right? I mean, everyone's got an iPad at home that turns on instantly. No one waits 45 minutes for a log on their home PC. Why should they wait for a slow log on at work, right? But how does user productivity translate? I mean, I think you touched on it there in terms of patient care, but how do they measure that in the world of healthcare?
Well, one of the things when it comes to user productivity, one of the things I want to highlight here is the performance manager. I have to tell you that it's a tough for me to decide if I had to pick a particular product that was better than the other. It's a close tie between environment manager and performance manager. I'll tell you, performance manager really made a huge difference in our environment. When we were running Epic 2012, they had an issue with client where the application would hang. And as we all know, as we increase session density on whether it be on any type of XenServer server, you start getting those disconnected sessions that are eating up memory and CPU. That can be challenging. I mean, almost critical to the other users who are running on that server. So one of the great things about the performance manager is the ability to clamp those executables down, and instead of letting them spike and eat up a CPU, they're being clamped, moved down and base priority, so that the users on the machine can still run their applications and not be affected by a hung session or a process that just goes rogue and just spikes the CPU. So when it comes to productivity, that was one of the biggest benefits of getting AppSense for us, is that we were able to increase the session density on our XenM servers and still deliver all the performance and the speed that the users needed to be able to complete their day-to-day tasks. For a long time, we had been sitting there, and a lot of times people say, "Oh, Citrix, that's no good," but when you and it's not that the Citrix is no good. A lot of times it's just the implementation of it, right? And being able to add in the pieces that you need to deliver that environment. So that was one of the things that once we came to the hospital and we had brought AppSense in and we started migrating from 4.5 to 6.5, and we're taking now and optimizing these applications and being able to, what we had to do before with scripts and group policies and all these different little things, we took all that information, we moved that into AppSense, and with the ability to multi-thread, I mean, we're running through these things quicker. People are able to log on faster, and their applications are responding quicker. And so that, I mean, a lot of the things that we had got from the hospital, I mean, again, we all know you don't get too many users coming up to you, running, and give you hugs and say, "Hey, this is so great." But again, what you're not seeing is you're not seeing that big revolt of people saying, "Oh, this is terrible. Oh, this is terrible." It's like now people are going to say, "Hey, let's just put in Citrix. Hey, let's just put in Citrix." And to me, that's a win in an organization when more people really start looking to the solution to be able to deliver not just some of their core applications, but other things that enable users to work both inside and outside seamlessly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And is that any different as you now start to go out and talk to these oil and gas and other types of verticals? I mean, are you seeing similar challenges when it comes to user perception? Are you having the same conversation outside of healthcare?
Absolutely. I mean, that's ultimately what more people like. I mean, it's essential for enterprises, for big organizations to be able to deliver applications quickly and seamlessly. I mean, one of the key things were when we were at McKesson, they had purchased another company, and one of the big things were like, okay, how do we get integrated quickly? How do we deliver these core set of applications to them? And everybody turns and looks, and they're all looking at me in the room, and I say, sure, we can put that on Citrix. Let's absolutely. What do we need to deliver? How many users do we have? And that ability, transcends no matter what vertical you're in.
Yeah.
So that's been a great thing about Citrix.
Okay. Good. Good. Um, so you mentioned Epic, and that was your first sort of introduction. I mean, tell us a little bit more about applications in healthcare? I mean, I'm assuming there's a number of them. By the sounds of it, Epic comes along and helps consolidate and rationalize some of those. But by the sounds of it, it's also got its own challenges. Um, I mean, what are some of those common applications, and what sort of challenges do you see when you're trying to deploy those in a thin type of environment?
So some of the ones that recently working with McKesson on working with some of the radiation applications, the ones that are actually going out there and delivering the treatment for those who are sitting on the table who have cancer. One of the cool things that that's been nice about AppSense, again, I want to bring out the performance manager, being able to help optimize those executables that normally take up big chunks of memory, the CPU, being able to throttle those things to allow greater user density and still deliver the same performance that they had prior to, with smaller number of users or sessions on that server. Some of the other applications, I mean, obviously, we've done the Office suite, our IE-based applications. Centricity was a big one, delivering that over Citrix. That's been an application that's always been somewhat of a fun time to work with at
Hmm.
times, and that was a big one. Um, we've had, I mean, again, it's kind of always been it's what do you need?
Yeah.
Whether it be multimedia, whether it be an IE-based application, something homegrown, your Office suite. At McKesson, one of their primary applications, Inomed, that's their EMR, and I mean that was delivered almost completely over Citrix in our environment. So I mean, I've seen the Gavin of apps. We've had some good apps and some bad ones that you're sitting here and taking out different pieces and pulling apart this file and that file and creating environment variables so that the application doesn't have to download. They had a tough one, Meridian, that was in Texas for a while, and it wanted to download this 700 meg file every single time you logged on. One of the guys from our team sat there painstakingly and dissected the different pieces of the application. I mean, it was taking 15 minutes to load it. Um, got in there with AppSense, and then um, determined what pieces need to come out, put all that together, wrap that up with Environment Manager, and they got those logins down to under a minute and a half.
Wow. Wow.
So it's things like that. I mean, the Java-based applications, things of those nature that's what the pieces that AppSense really able to do. Some applications have to run as administrator, using Application Manager to be able to, instead of giving a user admin on the box to kind of do as they please, whether they knew it or not, being able to leverage Application Manager to then say, hey, any user that goes to access this application, they now get to run that as administrator and have full rights that they need. And when they're out of that app, they don't have those rights. So there's a lot of pieces within AppSense that have made
Mm.
Citrix environments much easier to manage and deliver.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. And then you mentioned you were doing some upgrades as well. Citrix XenApp 4.5 to some of the later versions. I mean, I'm assuming some of these applications as well that are graphically intense, you can start to utilize some of the graphics enhancements in things like ICA and the Citrix clients as well, right?
Oh, absolutely. One of the big proponents, is one of my favorites. I'm a big XenServer guy. Absolutely love XenServer, and the GPU pass-through option has been significant. And being able to deliver virtual machines on XenServer that traditionally before you had challenges trying to deliver the GPU and being able to do those high-end graphics. And
Mm,
with those technologies that they've come out, coupled with the efforts that Citrix has made with HDX, has made what used to be a very challenging application when it required high-end graphics to now being able to leverage some of the newer technologies like your Intel Iris, your NVIDIA cards, to be able to deliver those graphic-intensive workloads in a virtual environment. And not only that, but being able to go from a Windows 7 to a Windows 8 to a Windows 10 desktop, it doesn't matter anymore. It's wherever the application is, and your data continues to follow.
yeah, yeah, good point. One application that we'd spoken about was something called iKnowMed. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. iKnowMed is the homegrown application from McKesson U.S. Oncology. It's been around for a lot of years now. They are one of the premier players in that market space when it comes to the oncology application, and it's gone through its ups and downs, but they're recently coming out with their G2 version out here, which has had some significant improvements in terms of how the users are using the application, the information that they're able to get, being able to run a new hardware. It's critical for the physicians and for the clinicians, the nurses, and the staff that are working the U.S. Oncology Network to be able to get all the information they need, and then be able to also look through that data to come up with trends, to be able to come up with drugs and treatments, and share that with the other practitioners in the U.S. Oncology Network. And it's a very important application to those users. So it's been very critical, and that is delivered over Citrix as well.
Right. Okay. Okay. And as we've been talking for the last half an hour, we talk about user productivity, talk about clinicians logging on nice and quickly, less support calls, less people moaning. But I get this distinct impression from you that actually fundamentally at the heart of everything, if you go back to what your bosses said about Epic, for instance, about Epic must not go down, and the way you're talking about I know Major, fundamentally here in healthcare is stability is the key thing here, right? It's we've got a service that we need to have up and running, otherwise it's life or death.
Well, and that's 100%. I mean, that's one of the primary things in healthcare, right? So your primary EMR, that's got to be up. One of the most interesting things that we did is, when going back to Epic again, is when running the Epic, there's multiple different pieces that go into making an Epic deployment. Some of those pieces, have if they get upgraded or they get patched or something happens, you have to be able to be agile, dynamic in your Citrix environment. And as we all know, when you use a provision environment using Citrix PBS, it's pretty challenging because when those machines reboot, it's Groundhog's Day. Everything goes back to the original start, and any data on there is now gone. So one of the coolest things we did the first time we had to make a registry change for a specific piece of the Epic that wasn't working correctly, went in there and they were all worried, like, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do this? I said, well. What registry key we need? We applied it to just a handful of servers, and then everything worked. That fixed our problem. Next thing you know, went over there, pushed the new config out to the entire production deployment. Right click, pull now, and every single machine in the environment got that patch, and we were able to continue to deliver the application. So, I mean, that was the first time that our director, our VP, our CIO, I mean, they're all standing there looking like, what are we going to do? And then being able to deliver that and know that everything got it and everything is working correctly, and when those machines reboot, they get that new config and everything's back again until you can crack that beta. So, I mean, that was one of the coolest moments that we had working at the hospital is that first time you show the value. I mean, some of the great values of the product.
Right. So, and just to be clear there, so you've done you've done a configuration change in AppSense to roll out a new registry key or a new registry change, and it has removed the need, for instance, to either repackage that application or redeploy that PVS image. So outside of the PVS image or the app packaging process, you're able just to make that application config change to a set number of users or a set number of servers, and ultimately keep, this mission critical application up and running. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So just real quick, what about security? I mean, healthcare in the US has had a bit of a tough time, particularly 2016. If you look at all the ransomware attacks, etc. I mean, big problem, or are the media making more out of that than they need to?
Well, kind of my experience here is, I don't know how most people are in organizations, but We've heard the term, or kind of got the term before, is that security is usually a bolt-on at the very end, right? So IT folks are in there, they're working, they're doing their stuff. All of a sudden, you get towards the end of the road here, or towards the end of the race, and all of a sudden they're like, well, "What about security?" And then you're like, "Oh, well, yeah, we'll just kind of put that on there and put it on at the end, and hopefully everything works." So I can completely understand how that seems. I mean, I've seen that in multiple organizations where people are just not so focused on security. They're looking at their piece or the pieces that they're working on and not bringing that whole piece together. So one of the cool things with security is the application manager being able to have the prevention for zero-day attacks.
Mm.
Being able to whitelist applications that you want running on your machines, and if something is not supposed to be on there, it doesn't run. That's a huge motivator for IT organizations, for companies, is to ensure that. I mean, nobody wants to be target. Nobody wants to have their name up in the paper saying that all this information has been removed. And in healthcare, it's painful. The cost associated with that is almost daunting and scary to even think about. So security is by far come to the forefront of you got your CISOs out there, the people who are looking and saying, look, we've got to do something. We need to ensure that we're not up there in bright lights with a security vulnerability. So application manager does that really well, and it's very the ability of it to secure and the different conditions and the different things that you can do with it is pretty exciting.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, it's Zen app, Zen desktop themselves, right? That the ability to virtualize the desktop and have that desktop and those applications sat in your data center, being remotely displayed. I mean, first and foremost, right? That must solve a massive security worry in a lot of people's minds, because you're taking the application and the data off the endpoint, which means, to your point, you've got this ability that doctors and clinicians can now roam about freely. We're not worrying about where data, for instance, is being left on a laptop somewhere, for instance, and couple that with things like NetScaler, and then you've got secure access to those desktops as well. But fundamentally, I think your point is as well is that it's still a Windows desktop that's now running in the data center. So there is still a need to do a form of application control and privilege management on that environment as well, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, no matter what you do, it's still in Windows OS. So you still have to take it, whether it's running in your data center, whether it's running on an endpoint. I mean, it doesn't matter where it's running at now. I mean, security is always a thing, and if you think it's not going to happen to you, you're next in line.
Yeah, yeah. So on the screen at the moment, we've got a couple of Citrix products up there that I'm hoping almost everybody is familiar with, but we'll quickly touch on those as well. And then on the right-hand side of the screen, we've got the Avanti Desktop Now products. As you can see, they're Desktop Now powered by what was the AppSense technology. That suite is typically made up of these three components: application manager, performance manager, and environment manager, that you've been referring to throughout the presentation. And both in my experience, and I'm assuming yours, Jason, is when you're deploying Zen app and or Zen desktop, these three components tend to go quite nicely and hand in hand together. For the benefit of anyone on the call, these three components from Ivanti, Application Manager, Performance Manager, Environment Manager, are typically performing some specific tasks. Application Manager is an agent that sits on the desktop, whether that be on the Citrix Zen desktop or your Zen app server, and is responsible for controlling which executables a user can and can't run, and what privileges those executables run with. So for instance, as a user double clicks on Microsoft WinWord, it passes through Application Manager, and Application Manager can make a decision whether to allow it or block it. Obviously, if it was WinWord, typically we would allow it. It automatically, for instance, protects against the unknown nasties out there. So for instance, you get a nasty VB script, a nasty PowerShell script, a nasty executable that's going to try and encrypt all of your files, or in fact, if it's just a user's downloaded iTunes unauthorized and tries to run it, Application Manager would block it. And there's various conditions and contextual rules that can go around when and how we do that. And we've also got some controls in around how we can control websites and website access, because again, some of our applications are now deployed via the web browser. But as Jason also alluded to, there were some applications there in healthcare and other organizations that sometimes require admin privileges to run. So the other thing that Application Manager does quite nicely is to choose what rights a particular executable or task runs with. So we can de-elevate administrators and we can elevate admins, as an example. The Performance Manager piece in the middle there is really responsible for managing CPU and memory, and that's the piece when Jason's been talking about improving user experience, controlling runaway applications that flatline the box at 100%, consume too much memory, and increasing user density. It's the Performance Manager component that's helped Jason there. And then our Environment Manager product is all around managing that environment, managing that user's environment. What happens as that user logs on? What happens as that user reconnects to their Citrix desktop environment? What printers do they need? What drive mappings do they need? What's going on with their profile? How big should their profile be? Can we manage and optimize that profile in a better way? Can we make those application changes that Jason was referring to too? So, I mean, is there anything in particular there that you want to call out that we haven't already covered, Jason? I mean, one of the things you were referring to was the ability to deploy group policies and replace all your logon scripts with the Environment Manager product. And you've obviously spoken about the application configuration. Is there anything? Did any of these products help, for instance, when you went through a migration or moving from a fat client environment to a Citrix environment, as an example?
Yeah, absolutely. When we were at Baylor Scott and White, one of our desktop engineers took it. We worked together, and he really kind of took it upon himself to really streamline the Windows XP to Windows 7 migration. They leveraged two technologies, one being AppSense and the other the Microsoft product. They were able to successfully migrate, I want to say 16,000 plus devices in a matter of a couple of months with I want to say a 98 or 99% completion rate. It was absolutely impressive, to the point where the engineer came up with that was actually writing reg keys. So when one step of the process would be completed, it would write a reg key there, and therefore if there were any issues during the upgrade where something got baffled or got disconnected or something botched, a user or a technician could restart that process. AppSense would go look for those registry keys and then know where it was in the process and then continue moving forward. It was one of the and they did it and they did it very cost effectively. One of the biggest things that I could recommend is if you're doing that migration, going from one OS to another, I could say hands down from being there and seeing it, what a smooth and seamless process that AppSense makes in doing some of those transitions. Whether you're doing that from a virtual environment or a physical environment, AppSense is phenomenal in that area. I will say that.
Yeah, yeah. So you were able to move larger chunks of users across to those environments quicker as well. I mean, is that
Oh,
right? So you take a
oh,
phased approach.
Absolutely. I mean, they were doing it. They were doing it by regions. They start out doing a few clinics, then it went to the hospital, and then it went to sections of the hospital, and then finally they ran their last big chunk there and took out the northern region. So it was. Doesn't matter how big or how small you got. It depends. They did it with a few number of technicians out there in the field who were doing this work, and it was all very scripted. So then being able to get reports and information back, it was incredible.
Yeah. And on the Citrix side of things, was it predominantly more Zen app or Zen desktop or a mix?
Predominantly, I've been more Zen app than really Zen desktop. Some of the places that I've been with and worked for, really, I mean, we've done environments where pilots where we're looking really to go with Zen desktop, and with AppSense and the performance manager and the techniques that we had used in this design. I mean, desktop launch was quick. The disconnect, reconnect, the different features and pieces that we need to deliver. The troubling thing for us, or at previous roles, was just the expense of it. Building out a large-scale VDI environment is not cheap. So that was, that was what has in the past prevented me from doing a true Zen desktop approach.
Yeah, yeah. And when you talking about applications and stuff, this is obviously coming in from the side. Application packaging. What did you tend to do? Did you package up MSI and deploy natively, or is there some virtualization going on in there? And I just wonder how that now fits. And obviously, Citrix have made an announcement around at their event earlier this year around the things that they're now going to be doing with the Unidesk technology, for instance. I just wondered what your experience was with that packaging and how that plays into things.
Really haven't done in some of the environments. Most of what we had to do was we installed everything locally and baked it into the image. Didn't do a lot with streaming. Over at McKesson, we did do that. We had part of our iNomed charting that was delivered and streamed over to the virtual machines, and that was seamless. We never had too many issues with that, being able to easily move things in and out. With the announcement of Unidesk and being part of the Citrix suite, we're extremely excited about that and looking forward to all the different opportunities that this affords us to deliver to our customers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I just say for the record, right? As you know already, Jason, but the Desktop Now portfolio of products prides itself on being and operating, agnostically and away from how a desktop and an application is delivered, right? So, we're not worried whether an application has been layered, it's been virtualized, it's been installed, for instance. We can still see that process, and therefore we can still manage those processes and the users that are interacting with them. And I think, to your point, sometimes that's about applying a group policy for a user, and sometimes that's about applying a registry key down to a particular application. And ultimately, where we want to get to is to try and package an application once or a desktop once and try and reduce that. Just on the screen now is a slide that I think I created quite some time ago. I'm not sure whether it ever even made it out into the big wide world, but it sort of talks through, for instance, how the Avanti Desktop Now products and Citrix really come together and why they are better together. We obviously help increase the adoption of Citrix. I think we've spoken about how we can get more users on Citrix quicker. We can hopefully help more applications move on to that platform as well. There's a whole host we do around reducing costs in terms of user density, more users per server, for instance, but also, you mentioned the reduction in support calls. I mean, a profile-related support call would typically be what, a second or a third line support call, Jason? So, reducing operational costs on the back end there. Easier ways to migrate. I mean, you mentioned going multiple OS, and then I think you've touched on the fact that reducing the PVS images. Is there anything else that sort of sticks out there that you can sort of give some color to?
Like I said, I mean, some of the biggest things there, being able to bring the persona from desktop to desktop. I mean, that's been a quite a instrumental piece in the different environments that I've worked in. Being able to seamlessly move from one instance to another, not have to worry about, oh, did I save this there? Did I put that there? Where did I keep that at? That's been a great piece, using the AppSense suite. The fast logons. One of the unique things that we did, leveraging some of the Citrix technologies like pre-launch. I mean, we were able to get those applications launching, in sometimes 3 to 5 seconds is just incredible. That's been probably one of the most unique things that we did there, was just really optimizing it and improving the customer user experience.
Yeah. Were you
And
using tap and go type stuff, or were people logging on with keyboards?
keyboards. They had a small section of tap and go, but it wasn't really. hospital wide, if you want to call it. So there was a couple of different departments which had it, but that was about it. But being able to reduce the storage for the user profiles, I mean, that's huge. A lot of times, when those profile directories, we all know, can get huge. And being able to say, hey, I only need these reg keys, I only need this folder or this file. That's really what helps set it apart from the other products that are out there.
That's interesting because yeah, we probably don't talk about that enough, or at least I know I don't. But the the inconsistency when you're talking 15,000 users, for instance, the inconsistency of profile size and the amount of storage that that then requires on your SMB shares, translating that across into AppSense world, you very, very consistent then. You are talking 15,000 users with a set profile size. Everybody would typically have the same profile size, and therefore, there's a lot more consistency and hopefully a reduction in terms of the amount of storage for that as well. So that is a good point. Just to wrap up, I know we've got about 5 minutes left, and I think we've got some questions as well lurking. But so I mean, proudest moment today. What from a Citrix deployment point of view, I mean, what's been your proudest moment, and what you're looking forward to for the rest of this year?
Well, one of the things I will say is this: is that when we were at the hospital and we were doing they had they had launched they started out in the southern region of for Scott and White, and they had launched that region about 500 to about 900 sessions. And then a couple months later, we got prepared up and ready to do, which was Central, which was the main region for the hospital. And when we brought those, 7,000 users on, you've got the board there, you've got the CIO there, your boss, his boss. I mean, and they're all sitting here looking, and everyone's like, okay, this has got to work, this has got to work. And when you see all green and everybody's working, and there's nothing bad happens, it's really exciting. I mean, it's great. It's a sense of relief to know that, hey, everything you build is rock solid, and it performs, and it continues to perform at that same level. That was a very gratifying moment to know that you just help deliver something that's helping patients, helping people, regardless of what's going on with them, you're able to help those.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and what am I looking forward to in 2017? With the new role that we've got here, I mean, I'm really excited about, and previously I came from the customer side, so I mean, I've been working in an institution to make, the Citrix environments either design and build them and with Greenfield, or come in there and help optimize things and help it ensure uptime and reduce the problems that they're having with their deployments. And being being in this new role, I'm looking forward to being able to go out and help more people who are looking to improve their environment, to make things better, to make their customers or our users happy. I mean, that's the biggest thing I'm looking forward to, and just enjoying and having fun and leveraging some of these new technologies that we have out today, different hardware platforms, and to be able to deliver that seamless experience.
yeah, yeah. It's interesting. I had a customer last week. Jason said to me, um, "We need to, we can't innovate and do any of the exciting stuff until we're excellent at doing the basics." And sort of struck a chord with me, isn't it? When you're talking about going back in some customers and helping optimize their environments, for instance, I mean, and remove things like slow logon times and support calls, etc. I mean, ultimately, what we're trying to do here is get ourselves to a point where the basics are just working, right? A user is happy with their experience, they're not experiencing profile corruption, they can log on from anywhere and get access to their applications and their data. Because once you get to that point, not only are you in the terms of healthcare saving lives, but you can then start to look at some of the more exciting stuff and start innovating in other areas, right? So
Well, they always say, simplicity. Everybody just wants simplicity, but on the back end, behind that simple front end, is just a web of connections, and being able to put all those different pieces together, align all those, so that when the customer comes out there, the user comes up there, it's simple, it's easy, and it works. I mean, that's always the ultimate goal.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And Neil, are you still on the line there? Have you got a couple of questions for us?
Oh, yes. Thanks very much, Jason. I think you've shared very great insights about how Absence and Citrix can work together in various verticals, reducing all the pain points for the customers and things like that. Thanks very much for that. Yes, we do have a few questions coming in. The first one being the very obvious in terms of the cloud transformation.
Mm.
Let me go to Jason first, and I'll come back to you, Simon. So with all these on-premise solutions going on cloud now, including many of Citrix's, uh, so how well is healthcare sector prepared for this transformation, or is it already happening?
Well, I think that in this day and age, if you haven't at least looked at it or, started to look or ask questions about it, it's you're a little behind. One of the big things out there is understanding, I think, probably the big misnomenclature is everyone says, "Oh, cloud, cloud, cloud." Let's get there, let's go there, let's go there. But when you're building that or when you're trying to do that cloud strategy, you need to be focused. You need to understand, have a good plan in place. Where are we going and how are we going to get there and what are we bringing with us? And I think that if you can answer some of those key questions and have a good idea just to say, hey, we're going to move to the cloud, I think that that's a little challenging. And you want to be focused and direct and knowing, where you want to go and ensuring how you're going to get there.
Definitely, thanks. And Simon, so I know Citrix and Absence. We've been partners for many years now. I had an opportunity to work hands-on with Absence a few years ago.
Hmm.
Great product. We've been working together for quite some time, and as you know, we are moving a lot of our services being available on cloud.
Hmm.
So with this transformation, I would like to know how Ivanti and Absence or Absence position themselves in this transformation.
Yeah. So, I mean, the first thing to note is that the way in which the way in which our technology works, uh, and there are some caveats, but at a very simple level, is an agent that is installed on the desktop. So we don't care whether that desktop is a Windows 10 PC sat at home. We don't care whether it's a desktop sat in on premises or whether it is a desktop being delivered out of the cloud, AWS, Azure, for instance. The communication we use to manage the user's profile and to manage ourselves is all done over HTTPS, so we've got no problems with communication there. So we can actually help Zen Desktop being delivered either on premises or from somebody else's cloud, or for instance from the AWS or the Azure cloud, for instance. So our stuff can be deployed, and in fact, if you've got a user that needs to seamlessly move from a desktop that was being delivered on premises to a desktop that's being delivered from the cloud, we can actually help ensure that that user remains secure and provide them with a consistent, familiar environment as they go from on premises to the cloud, and in fact, perhaps back again. And we're already seeing some customers do that. Particularly using the cloud for things like DR as an example. So our technology is fully supported both on premises and in the cloud. In addition to that, you can also put some of our infrastructure into the cloud. So just earlier this year, in fact, at Citrix Summit in January, we announced our support for AWS and Azure. So you can actually put the AppSense infrastructure, if you want to, into the cloud. You don't need to. And also, we've done a load of work with you guys on the Citrix Lifecycle Manager. So
Oh,
you can go onto
right.
Citrix Cloud now, and you can actually have blueprints that can help you automate and set up the AppSense infrastructure as well. So yeah.
Sounds wonderful. And I know we are running out of time, but let me take one last question. So here's one question which asks, does Absence work well with App3?
It
And can
does.
data be injected? Yes.
Yes, it does. Yeah. So as I said earlier, we don't care how the application is delivered. We've been supporting AppV since version 4, but yeah, fully support. A lot of our customers utilize virtualization technologies, AppV being the most common one. As far as we're concerned, it's a user and a process, and we can allow it, we can block it, we can elevate it, we can control the CPU and the memory of it, and we can personalize it and configure it. And likewise, if that user then decides to move on to a different system and use the same application but which isn't virtualized, it makes no difference to us either. That application can be configured and managed and personalized in exactly the same way. So you can have a user that's running a version of Epic that has been AppV'd and a version of Epic that hasn't been AppV'd, and it wouldn't make any difference. The same would be the case for the Unidesk layering technology as well. So again, if you've got applications being put into layers, as we see the adoption of that increase over the next 12 to 18 months, the same applies. It's fully supportable.
Awesome, Simon. Thanks very much. There are some more questions coming on, but we are unable to take them due to the time bounds. We will definitely get back to you privately, answering all your questions without fail via email. Also, I see many attendees asking for the slides in the recording of this webinar. To answer that question, yes, we are recording this webinar and will be shared with all the attendees shortly. But with that said, we are about to end today's webinar. And any last words, Jason, from your end?
No, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. And again, I really enjoy working with not only AppSense and Citrix. So I appreciate the opportunity to come and tell my story and how the products have enabled success in the environments that I worked with and the environments that I'll work with in the future. So thank you very much for the opportunity and appreciate it.
Thanks, Jason. And any final words from you, Simon?
No, thanks to you and Neil and the Citrix Ready team for pulling this webinar together. But first and foremost, thank you to Jason for coming on this webinar, giving up his time and sharing his experiences with us. I wish him and all of the guys at the Alchemy group and their venture the most success over the next 12 months. So thank you, Jason. It's greatly appreciated, and I wish you all the best for 2017 and on.
Thank you, Simon.
Right. And last but not the least, I want to thank each and every one who attended this webinar today, in the Citrix Ready Technical Webinar Series. And that shall conclude our broadcast today. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.